Well, hello everyone and welcome to Oh Yum with Anna Olson. I'm thrilled to be back cooking for you live, baking in fact, but we're going savory today. I am making stromboli. You probably saw the picture. It looks like a rolled up pizza. Before I get into that, I have to say my hellos to everyone. First, Esme, hello, and say hi to your sister Lori and your mom and dad and to your Aunt Hazel and Ian also. So have a great time this evening. Bonnie, hello. Suzanne, hello. Kathy, hello. Michelle from Northern Ireland, thank you for joining. And I know so many of you are joining from all around the world. Let me get into today's recipe. It is, as I said, stromboli, which sounds Italian, and it is American Italian. It's not actually from Italy, but this recipe is like a filled rolled bread dough. And essentially the dough itself is like a pizza dough. So just as a note for everyone, I'm gonna get into making the recipe by hand, and when I'm doing sort of passive things like kneading the dough or rolling it out, that's when I'll take a minute, look at the screen, and I can answer your baking questions. But I see people writing from all over, from Indonesia and Indiana. I absolutely love it. So first, I'm going to make this recipe by hand. I'm gonna mix the dough by hand to show you that you too can make it by hand. You don't need to pull out the mixer for it. I've already measured my flour. Now this is 00 Italian flour, which in my town of 60,000 people, I can buy it. So I'm hoping that you have access to it. When you see 00 flour, that refers not to the gluten strength or the protein in the flour, but it actually refers to the grind. So the lower the number, the finer the grind. So you have 00, single zero, 1, and 2, and then integrale, which is your whole grain flour. You can use all-purpose flour in this recipe with great success. Pizza crusts and bread doughs like this would use 00 flour, but the flour itself would be duro, or a hard or strong flour. So it's high in protein, but milled finely. That is why it makes great pizza crust and bread dough, because it's got the protein bonding, but because of its fine grind, it hydrates quickly. So if you're into making focaccia or pizza dough, you want to use the 00 flour. I've added my instant yeast already and my salt, and I'll just stir that together with my fingers to blend it. And I've already measured out my 250 ml of tepid water and just 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then what I do is I stir this until it's the dough comes together, but it doesn't have to be completely blended, because then I'm going to turn it out on my work surface. So just to finish my 00 flour story, there is an ending to the story. In addition to the duro, the hard flour, you can buy 00 tenero, which is a softer flour, tender flour. So that's the flour you use in the same grind. That would be the equivalent of our cake and pastry flour. So I hope that clarifies sort of the Italian numbering system when it comes to flour. So now you can see how I've got a dough that's come together, and it's really kind of craggy. So now I'm going to turn it out on my work surface. I'll get all the little crumbly bits I can. And now I'll just take a couple of minutes and knead this by hand, and it'll start becoming smoother and more elastic. I say generally 5 minutes is good, and that's if you're working slowly. If you're working faster, I'd say even 3 minutes. The nice thing about a dough like this is it's not finicky or fussy. You can always add a little more liquid or a little more flour, depending on its consistency. You shouldn't have it sticking to the palms of your hands when you knead it. Just pulling up my crumbs there. I do have a little dish with extra flour. Just in those early stages, before the flour hydrates and becomes elastic, you may need just a touch of flour. But you don't want it slipping and sliding all over your work surface. And just a quick motion. Are you on the overhead camera, Michael? Just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm using the heel of my hand, pushing away, then I pull it and towards me, so it's sort of folding in half. Then I rotate the dough 90 degrees, push, pull, and rotate. And you get a really nice rhythm. If anyone follows pastry chef Cedric Grolet's videos, if he has a yeast dough, he always has to spend the beginning of the video kneading it a little bit. It's just one of those gratifying activities. Oh, hello bada bing, home of the good Italian Stromboli, apparently, even though it was invented in Philadelphia, from what I've read. We've got hellos from all over the place. New Zealand, Australia, Atlanta, Brockville, Ontario. I hope it's a beautiful day there. We've just cleared up here. We've had a bit of a drippy April, so I'm glad it's May tomorrow. If you have any baking questions, please pop them into the thread. I'm only going to be kneading this for about another minute more, but you can see how it's becoming more smooth and elastic. And this is a good make ahead. So if you want to do your good wood oven pizza, or if you have one of those propane pizza ovens, you can make a pizza dough out of this. I have the full instructions underneath. I find a dough size this volume makes 3 small, 2 medium pizzas. Well, actually 3 medium pizzas. And by medium, I mean an individual pizza. And the proof time remains the same, but this is also a dough that can be put in the fridge and refrigerated overnight. And that way you get a crust that gets those beautiful blisters on it when you put it into a hot oven. Oh, Michael, we have people watching from everywhere. Just got a hello from Barcelona, from Vancouver, from Brampton. And in that time, I can just feel, you don't even have to look, you can feel, and this is why I love making dough by hand, under the touch of your hands, that all of a sudden the dough went smooth, almost satiny to the touch. So there it is, and you want to give this a good hour to rise. So I'm just going to set this aside because guess what? I have one ready for you. This is what it looks like after an hour. Oh, I love unwrapping a bowl of risen dough. That yeasty aroma is just so amazing. So there's that transformation. And what I'm going to do, I will need a bit of flour on my surface now. Now it's time to roll out this dough. If you're into making bread dough and you start talking about things like hydration, what your percentage of water to flour you add, you'll figure out that the softer the dough, the wetter the dough, the better the crust you get, the better the lift, but it does make it somewhat sticky to handle. Pick up this simple little tool. It's a bowl scraper, and it's got a little flexibility, but it allows you to get all those lovely little bits of dough out. Oh, I'm gonna pop this dough into the bowl to rise. I might as well just put it behind me. And so now we've got this fluffy pizza type dough, and where a calzone you would cut into small pieces of dough, roll into circles, fill with meats and cheeses, whatever you want, but no tomato sauce, then fold it in half, either bake it or fry it, and serve your marinara sauce on the side with a stromboli. You almost assemble it like a pizza. You put the sauce inside, and then you roll it up, kind of like a cinnamon bun. So I'm just going to roll this out. I'm going to go wider than I am longer, so creating a rectangle here, about just under 1 centimeter thick. Oh, Sanskriti is asking about methods in kneading dough. The kneading methods are pretty common when it comes to that style of kneading when you're really exercising the glutens. You've probably seen the technique with really wet doughs, particularly for focaccia doughs, where people simply lift under and fold, and that helps trap the air bubbles that the yeast is producing. And it's more for that no-knead style bread. So when it's really wet and sticky and you can barely handle it, that's when you use that folding technique, and you do that multiple times to replace a single step of kneading. I hope that answers your question. So this really does look like it could be a tray pizza, but I'm going to transfer this to my baking tray, and let's start with our tomato sauce. I am in the works of my next cookbook, which is a combination of cooking and baking. Because not a lot of people realize that I studied culinary first before I went into baking. And so I've got a lot of cooking recipes, including how to make a really good tomato sauce in summer and a winter version of tomato sauce. You have to be patient. I haven't even got my edits yet, so it's going to be a little ways off before that book's ready. Of course, I've included some dessert recipes in there too. So use your favorite tomato sauce, or it can be just a passata, the plain crushed and strained tomatoes. And the fillings, because you're rolling up your pizza. How's that placement, Michael? Does that work? I don't want to block the assembly. So just a thought on the fillings. Like a pizza, you know, if you put a raw ingredient on top, it can sometimes make the pizza watery and you don't get a good crunch. Because the filling is going inside the stromboli, you want to make sure it's either not going to let a lot of liquid out or that it is cooked. So I've got cold cuts, I've got cheese, I have Kalamata olives, roughly chopped. I've got fresh spinach, only about 2 cups, so that won't let off a lot of liquid or create steam that separates the layers. But if you wanted to add something like bell pepper, onions, or mushrooms, I would cook those down first before you add them. But it gives you complete flexibility on what you'd like to fill your stromboli with. So I'm gonna start with just some simple, I've got Black Forest ham, but you would buy the prosciutto cotto if you were buying the Italian version. And if my good friend Giovanni is watching, I hope my pronunciation is okay. We've made pizzas together. He's the tour operator when Michael and I host culinary tours, and we travel all over the place. We've been, all over Italy. So keep an eye, if you want to sign up for my newsletter, if you go to my website, it's annaolson.ca, I always post sort of the newsletter's new, but we always give advance notice to people who sign up for Giovanni or my newsletter on the upcoming trips. Okay, my next layer, I'm putting on, this is delicious, locally made capicola. Oh, it looks like I have some extra pieces. Michael, do you want some?
I'll get them later.
You'll get them later? Okay. And now this is spicy soppressata, so calabrese style soppressata. I like a little spice. There we go. And the olives I leave up to you. It could be chopped artichoke hearts if you want. And I would recommend chopping them up. The black olives. And then my fresh spinach leaves. Hello to everyone, right? We've got people, it's fantastic. Australia, Sydney, Australia, Sacramento, California. Coeur d'Alene, I've probably said that completely wrong. In Idaho, Sunnyvale, California, we've got people watching from everywhere. And I thank you for joining me. So this is still very much looking like a pizza, isn't it? Just tuck that behind. Now, the last layer, of course, some good mozzarella cheese. And I find it, you'll notice in the recipe, I've included everything, whether you measure by volume or by weight. You'll find you have the full instructions there. I find the weights are handy, even if you're used to measuring by volume. The weights are very handy if you're going out shopping for your ingredients, so you can tell how much to buy and not overbuy. All right, So this looks like a pizza and now it's stuck on my cutting board. So what do? How do I get it to the tray? We're gonna roll it up. So what I like to do is I tuck in the ends so that way the cheese and saucy bits won't leak out. And then just like a cinnamon bun, roll it up. And I didn't leave a whole lot of space at the end, but try and leave a bit of a gap, because what you want to do is pinch that dough together, again, to seal in the ingredients inside. All right, and now it's not so fragile and easier to handle. And I'll transfer this, flipping it over so the seam is at the bottom. And you'll find as you handle it, it kind of, there we go, it really does fill the pan. So this, at this point, you have your first proof of the dough for an hour. This proof is for 30 minutes once you've got it assembled. If you wanted to assemble this ahead of time, you could put it in the fridge at this point, cover it, and leave it in the fridge overnight. And then instead of 30 minutes proofing it the next day, let it proof for 90 minutes. Let it really warm up. Don't forget there's dough on the inside. Let the ingredients warm up a little bit. 90 minutes isn't too much for the filling ingredients, and then bake it. I also love it at room temperature because then you can get nice thin slices. So, of course, I've got one ready for you. I assembled this stromboli about 15 minutes, 20 minutes before we went live, so that way I could have it for you. It doesn't change a whole lot in its shape or the texture of the dough. You just do want to give it that time. After you've stretched the dough, you want to give the yeast a chance to sort of reactivate and fuel up the dough so when you do put it in the oven, it expands beautifully. You can bake it just like this without anything on it, but I like a little shine, so I'm going to brush a little egg wash on there. Well, everyone seems to be writing and finding some appeal. Who's about to order a pizza for dinner? Well, you can whip this up. I know it's here in Southern Ontario, it's going on 6:30. So you could have this, if you were to start it now, you could have it ready for 8 o'clock. That's not bad. And if you're in Southern Ontario, the chances are probably good. You might be watching a bit of a hockey game. Oh my goodness. I'll say no more there. And the finishing touch, a little grated Parmesan cheese. Now just a note. I don't know if I like grating Parmesan cheese myself from a block. If you buy the pre-ground, I find it burns too quickly. You don't get a really nice melt and caramelization of the cheese. And I do like to add the Parmesan because it just lends an intensity. The mozzarella is so mild, this just really lifts it. And then the final step, just to allow any steam to escape, just use a knife and cut into the dough a little bit. This allows for expansion. And this is ready for the oven. And I've preheated it to 400 Fahrenheit, so that's 200 Celsius, and it bakes for about 30 minutes. And really what you're looking for is that even, rich, golden brown color. So we've got oven cam today. There we go. Because I wasn't doing anything stovetop today, I was able to, Michael was able to move the camera to focus, so it's just hiding to the right of my knees. I wish I had more to put in the oven now that you've set up the oven cam. Oh well, you can stay on it, and when it comes out in half an hour, I should set the timer. And how's everybody doing at home? Having fun? Ready for a little stromboli? Well, here it is. Now, just like a pizza, hot out of the oven, because this is thick, it will be just too hot to eat. So I like to let it sit for about 10 minutes. And let's see. Oh, my cooling rack is shaking. There we go. I think I'll cut this in half and put half of it on the cutting board. I think that'll be easier. But you could just slide, oh, that's what I'll do. This is live TV. I have to think out loud sometimes as I go through this process. Make sure it's loosened everywhere. Yeah. There. And now we can give it a slice. I think this makes a perfect picnic food at room temperature. So you can make this, fully bake it ahead, even chill it, and then you get nice clean slices and pack that up because it's a built-in sandwich. Look at that. Which shot do you want, Michael? B-cam right there. Look at those layers. You got the fluffy bread in the center, the olive, the spinach, the meat, the nice melting cheese. Let me cut a few slices. I think everyone is watching intently. I haven't had a whole lot of questions today, but since Gritty's asking about offset spatulas, I'd say the most popular one you see out there is called Attico. It's the most common, and it's a commercial grade offset spatula, and they come in an assortment of sizes. Okay, Multi-Gem Girl is going to have her husband grate the cheese because that's his skill. Oh, good. I'm glad everybody is enjoying. I wish I could share this all with you. I know Bonnie's going to get hers, the dough that I have rising over there, that's going to be her stromboli for tomorrow. You can see even this came out of the oven just 2 minutes before we went live, and it's still steaming hot. Oh, so good. Easy to eat. And I'll be honest, I think it's the baker in me. I've become accustomed to appreciating and enjoying the end pieces. So I'm going to cut a bit off the end. I'll be honest, I know the end piece is a bit cooler right now. Where would you like that, Michael, for me?
Right down the board, but cheat it towards me. Thank you.
Here we go. And I'll take this piece for myself. There we go. People are asking about using, this is a great time to ask me some of your questions because I'm just going to slice the piece and nibble away for a few minutes because that came together so quickly. I'll be back next Tuesday for another live stream. I have got a fun recipe planned. But let's finish the conversation about stromboli. Someone was asking about using different kinds of cheese. Yes, 100%. You just want to make sure you use a cheese that melts nicely. Cheddar is a tasty option, but it can sometimes become greasy. So if you want cheddar, mix it with another cheese that melts well, like a mozzarella. Monterey Jack melts well. A good Gruyere. It takes a lot of Gruyere though. And that would be a very strong, pungent cheese to add in this against the tomato sauce. So think on the milder side of the cheeses. Someone was asking about different meats. Can you use pepperoni and sausage, spinach, cream cheese? Get creative. I've given you now the base formula, and just like a pizza, the toppings, in this case the fillings, are really up to you. I will remind you that you want toppings or fillings that aren't too wet, or you can pre-cook them. Think in caramelized onion and beef. If you have leftover chicken, spread that on top. It is up to you so long as those fillings are cooked. I wouldn't put raw chicken in this. It wouldn't bake in the same time. But yeah, think along those pizza lines. If you don't eat meat, of course, you leave this out altogether and replace it with extra vegetables. Roasted pepper, grilled zucchini and eggplant would be delicious in it. You could crumble feta cheese. You could put pesto on instead of tomato sauce. I really leave it up to you. Maria, great question. Gouda, yes, to Gouda. Maria's asking about how do you know if it's perfectly done? You really go for that even browning color. 5 minutes before I pulled this out of the oven, I had a couple of patches that were just barely browned a little bit. 5 minutes later in the oven, the whole stromboli was brown. So really color is your guide there. Oh, good question, Grace. Would you saute all your veggies together or separately? It depends what they are. Just like you would if you were preparing a meal, onions typically go in the pan first, then your mushrooms, and then the more delicate vegetables go afterwards. So I hope that answers your question. I wouldn't want you to make more dishes by cooking vegetable in 3 different pans. I'm sure you can do it all at once. Oh, and we've got greetings from Brazil. Oh, and Sanskriti, it's like I planted that question. Sanskriti is asking about products that say gluten vegan and others that are certified gluten vegan. Well, guess what? Next Tuesday, I am going to tackle that conversation because I have a recipe for a pineapple coconut loaf cake that is out of this world. And Michael has tasted my 2 vegan versions and my gluten-free version to prove that you can adapt and substitute. So you have to join me next week because I will be talking about all those vegan and gluten-free substitutions for a delicious cake. And I froze all my tests so I can show you what they each look like so you understand what the end goal is. And we will touch on those vegan questions and certified vegan gluten-free options. So thank you, everyone. I think we are about done. Michael, it's like we know what half an hour is. It's fantastic. I just got a bit of spicy salami with the olive. I absolutely love it. The spinach, I'll be honest, it's there for color. I really hope you make this recipe, and I hope I've made it approachable, that you are just going to jump in, enjoy, and be proud of what you make, because ultimately, that's why I'm here for you. I will see you in a week, same time, same place, making that pineapple coconut cake. I really appreciate your comments, your questions. You are the best fan base. I absolutely adore you. We're such a positive group, and I'll see you again soon. This is why I love doing the live streams. Mwah!